Last week, we spoke to my newest favorite person, Octavia Goredema. She taught us how to keep employees motivated and appreciated. Today, we go deep on her and her company, Fire Memos. Oh, and she met the King of England. It's employee appreciation time on Startup Different. This is the Startup Different podcast, hosted by successful entrepreneurs and brothers, Dave and Chris Sinkinson. We're here to bust startup myths and give you the insights you need to help you reach your startup dreams. Hello, folks, and welcome to another episode of Startup Different. He is Mr. Chris, and I am Dave.
Mr. Very Formal.
Yeah, we're a very formal show here on Startup Different. Thanks for joining me, Christopher. Man, how about that last episode with Octavia?
Wow.
That is a cool person.
Yeah.
Genuinely inspired. Like, I said it on the episode because I was like, man, well, first off, I'm just going to point out a few things. I don't think we've had anyone be as supportive of the book.
Yeah.
So that was really cool to see it like earmarked, and like that made me very warm inside.
Yeah.
Octavia, thank you for that if you're watching this right now.
And actually, that was the point of writing the book, was hopefully we could have some advice that would help other entrepreneurs. And I feel like, we always joke that even if it just helps one person, well, there's at least one now.
She was the one.
It was fantastic, actually. And she's so into entrepreneurship that it was just amazing.
She's just so passionate.
Yeah.
And she's so like, whatever she's into, she's way into it. And I think that's really, really cool.
And there's a lot that she's into.
That kind of, I think that's kind of one of the bigger points of today as we recap this. And we're going to pull out some good business lessons that we can learn from the conversation we had with her for you guys today, so you can benefit with your business at home. But just generally speaking, what an impressive person. Also, one thing I wanted to mention too, because we did actually keep talking to her for a few minutes after we ended the interview, because right at the end, we talked about how she met the now King of England. Yeah. No, future king.
Yeah.
And, I always get other names mixed up. Charles?
Yeah, Prince Charles. Well, King Charles.
King Charles.
It was Prince Charles. Yeah.
Oh, it's okay, whatever.
Yeah.
And anyway, it doesn't matter. Royal family. And then we were like, maybe someday you'll meet the president. And she's met multiple presidents.
Yeah, she's like met them all.
Okay.
All the like recent presidents she's met, I think, except Trump. But that's
I'm just Dave from Canada. Anyway, so let's talk about her. So really cool journey, obviously from public relations in London to this Fire Memos thing in Los Angeles. So like changing countries, changing continents, changing industries, like really courageous, a really impressive level of just like courage just to go into this stuff and do it. She had a couple of startup myths. One that was big was that solo founders can't make it happen and can't get into some of the top incubators and accelerators. And so we'll address that a little bit here today too, because I think that was kind of an interesting takeaway. She's right, obviously, because she's living proof of it, but I think it's complicated. So let's talk about that. And then some other key business lessons. I think the biggest one that I want to make sure we hit on is that, stepping out of that comfort zone and pushing yourself, because her experience is so clearly how like putting yourself out there and pushing yourself yields really good results a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Particularly when it's something you're good at. You kind of, we'll get into downstream effort again and all that kind of stuff too.
Okay, so we're going to start with the comfort zone first, or
actually, I guess we are.
Yeah.
So we'll be like, let me notes here. No, yes. So growth happens outside your comfort zone. I think is one of the big lessons.
So my first comment on this whole thing is, I always thought when I left our small town that we grew up in to
Kingston,
move
Ontario,
to
Limestone City. Woo!
To move to the big city, like that
Toronto.
was really stepping out of my comfort zone. And what I'm realizing is, in comparison to what she's done,
nothing.
That's nothing.
Yeah. It's funny. I think we both did that, just for the record. And I was excited to move to Toronto, but like we had gone to Toronto all the time when we were kids. Like went to come up here to see Blue Jays games. Like it's very familiar, the most modest of challenges, I think.
Yeah. Whereas contrasting it with her, so obviously she grew up in London. She's now in Los Angeles. So just that like geographical to put yourself out of your comfort zone, that's a pretty big step. But then I think a lot of the things she was doing, she was really putting herself out there, which is really impressive. Some of the different, what was the reason that she met the Queen was because she started something for Black children in London, and had a tremendous impact in that community, and that was why she was recognized for it. Like that's really impressive.
Yeah.
And I've never even pondered doing something like that.
Yeah, of course.
So,
I think it's cool that she just follows her passion and things that have been like issues for her. Even why she commented on why she wrote the book, which is all about like underrepresentation of Black women in business and how to succeed, basically.
Yeah.
And it's really very much her story. But I think that's like it's just remarkable because that's a lot of systemic adversity. And then so she challenged that systemic adversity, frankly, won, and then is now helping others pass that same issue.
Yeah.
I think that's surprisingly awesome and really cool to see.
I think if we fast forward a little bit further now, with her current venture, Fire Memos, that I didn't get the sense that she had a ton of technical experience in her background. She was more on because it's an HR product. It's to help drive, reward employees.
And we'll get into it too.
We're going to get into that, but like she's getting into now like a tech space without really having a ton of tech background and not having that tech co-founder, which I think we've busted that myth a bunch of times with all the various guests that we've had, where we always used to think, well, you got to have the nerd, me, and then you got to have the sales and marketing person, you. Yeah. And that's really not the case that we've seen with a lot of different people doing tech startups.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising. And actually this, if I can bring those 2 points together for a second, it does take me back to season 3, when we met with Mehdi Basiri, a Plyboard, that incredibly successful company, and founded it with his two brothers, one of them being his twins. But what's interesting is they immigrated into the country. They had their big journey. They pushed themselves outside of their comfort zone, obviously from their home country to here, and they were ridiculously successful. Remember, Mehdi also brought up that it's something like 25% or more. I can't remember now.
Yeah.
Actually, maybe like 50% of all unicorns or greater than that are all founded by immigrants.
Yeah.
And so you think about her story and this kind of adds up. Okay. So on the one hand, she pushed herself there and you really get that. And then going back to Mehdi again, none of those brothers are technical.
No.
And that's a
right.
huge, that's a $4 billion tech company.
Yeah.
Okay? So I agree. I just think it's fascinating though, that there's a lot of parallels between a lot of these entrepreneurship stories that we've had up to now, where it's like, you didn't actually need that tech co-founder. So really, you are irrelevant. Is really what I'm trying to say.
I'll just leave right now.
Chris, I don't know what to tell you. You're fired.
Yeah. But I think that's impressive. I think that is something that is interesting. I think maybe it's a lot of the tools that are available nowadays. Maybe we're just a lot better at connecting with those types of resources. We're able to access those types of resources other places rather than always having to find a co-founder that's going to do the technical aspects of the business.
I think it also just again, the story of coming here and all that is it really pushes you to grow.
Yeah.
And I think you're just used to taking on challenges and you're like, okay, well, I want to do this thing. I want to do something technical. I don't know how to do something technical. I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Just another thing I got to figure out. So I think that was pretty interesting.
Cool.
Hey, one thing that Chris and I have talked a lot about on this show is how easy it is for founders to build apps and automations with no-code tools. One of the most powerful tools out there is called Bubble. But even though Bubble is a no-code platform, it can get a little complicated to do things on your own. And so our sponsor today is an agency that's called Zero Code. That's ZeroQode, which is a top Bubble agency and that can help you build any web, mobile, or AI application, as well as automate your entire business using no-code and AI tools. Zero Code will help you build custom solutions, CRMs, custom dashboards, marketplaces, or internal tools to automate your business much faster and cheaper. However, if you want to try to build on Bubble yourself, Zero Code is also the biggest plugin builder for Bubble, and they have more than 700 plugins. Make sure you check them out. Discover the simplicity and power of no code and AI at zerocode.com. That's Zero Code and code with a Q. And now back to the show. But let's go back to one difference between Mehdi and the folks at Plyboard and her is that she is a solo founder. And she mentioned this as something that is kind of something she wanted to debunk as a startup myth.
Yeah.
Which is pretty interesting, actually. Now, this one I'm a little bit more skeptical. I'm cool with the myth, the debunking that you need a technical co-founder to be a tech company. What I'm less cool with is that you're more likely to be successful. And I don't think she was necessarily saying that, but she was saying that you can get into major incubators, major accelerators. What was it? It was
Techstars.
Techstars.
Yeah.
I was trying to remember. Got into Techstars and mentioned also somebody else who got into Techstars who was a solo founder.
Right.
And that was interesting. I think that, and she also said this, but she had a very strong support network around her. So despite the fact that, yes, on the one hand, she was able to do it, and that is highly unusual. I'm pretty sure Techstars just doesn't really do that. And I think about Y Combinator doesn't really do that.
Right.
There's a bunch of them that you really need a team of 2 co-founders. But in her case, she did it. So I kind of just feel like, yes, you could do that. But because you had that level of support, I'm sure that made it easier for Techstars to do it.
Yeah. So putting the technical co-founder aside, but the idea of having a co-founder. So I know you and I, when we were running our business, it was incredibly helpful to have that other person to talk to, whether I was having a bad day, you were having a bad day, we just needed to console each other. So where do you land on that? Do you think that that is something that is like, if you're a solo founder and you're doing your thing, you're going to have some big setbacks.
Yeah.
Who are you talking to?
Yeah, you've got to have like mentors or maybe a board of director or I don't even know, maybe a partner or a family member.
Yeah.
Just somebody, I think what we've really debunked here is that, the co-founder doesn't have to be technical.
Yeah.
But you do need a co-founder most of the time, mostly to be your chief psychology officer.
Yeah.
Like their primary function. And I think that's kind of an interesting business thought, because that's not something you're going to hear at business school, necessarily. You're always talking about various strengths. So you can, maybe you got a marketing person and you got a, again, like in our case, sales and technical. Yeah. But I think actually it's more the emotional support to be able to push through.
You know what I struggle with? Like before you...
Like resiliency.
Like obviously we have the 10-year age gap. So before you showed up, I was doing the solo founder thing.
Yeah.
And
struggling. Sorry. So you give me an opportunity like that, I'm going to hit.
But actually this might be part of the reason why was, you're kind of in your own echo chamber. And when you do go and try and seek help from outside people with problems you're having, setbacks you're having in your business, do you ever notice that when you tell somebody a problem, they kind of can just like really quickly say, well, just, fire that employee, or, get rid of that customer, stop working with that customer, whatever. But
that's what family does.
Yeah, but like it's really hard to express the complexity of the situation to people who are kind of outside. Whereas I feel like, fast forward another 10 years, you and I are working together and I have a problem and I can explain it to you and you actually see the complexity and are more willing to like talk it out and work through it. Yeah. Because you're invested.
I get it.
I
was there. I could see the problem. I could feel the problem with you.
Yeah.
I totally understand.
So this is Chris's theory of having a founder is better than having a mentor or somebody on the side, is that the founder is actually in the game with you and it actually has like, everything at risk as well. So they really understand and are really going to take the time to understand what
I think they can empathize.
Yeah.
I think it comes back to empathy. I think people on the outside, you're right. They are outside looking in. They don't feel the same problems. They don't quite understand it.
Doesn't affect them.
And I think you need to have somebody who's in the business or depending on the nature of the problem, in or on the business with you, tackling that same issue. So that's when you can work through it.
So do you think that's like a risk for Octavia that she's going to...
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I think that you know what though? She also seems like the kind of person though who would also be a very good co-founder with somebody else. It's not that. I think this is really the thing that sounds kind of weird. I'm not criticizing her as a person. I think she's incredibly capable, and I think she could do it. I definitely think you could be
of all
a great
people I've ever met.
Yeah.
I think she can do it.
Yeah, for
probably
sure.
cruise through it. I just think
I'm sure she has her emotional ups and downs.
Yeah,
but I think she could do it, and it's hard. It'll be hard.
Yeah,
but I think it would be easier and advantageous for her to have the co-founder to deal with some of these issues and have someone else kind of give you more regular feedback that's really candid and that's in it, and like kind of just as you're describing.
Yeah,
that's a good point. I like
Might
that.
be one of those things that you meet the right person who's aligned with
the one.
you. Yeah, the
business one.
The business one.
I think that's what I wrote in the book.
Did you?
At some point, I was like, "This is you meeting your business one."
I don't know if I like that. Can we retract that in the book at this stage?
The second edit of the book. Hey, it went through like 20 editors and they were all cool with it. So whatever. Yeah. Let's move on from this because I think we've really hit that point. So let's go to prioritization. So one thing that was interesting about her is she did a ton of stuff. And I think this is actually a real challenge for many entrepreneurs. We actually talk to other entrepreneurs in different capacities through different business schools or things we're working on. And I do find it's funny when you hear about, okay, I want to do this and 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 I want to do this, or I have all these other things that I do at the same time. And there's an issue around prioritization. And I think that being able to identify the most like critical tasks is hard for an entrepreneur. Like, what should you work on today?
Yeah.
And that's probably another good co-founder thing, actually, for what it's worth. But
this is the eternal battle of the urgent versus the important.
Yeah,
okay?
seriously.
You know, and
like, sometimes they're both.
Well,
sometimes issues are both, and then you should work on that.
Yeah.
But when they're not,
yeah,
that's really challenging.
I always found that being the technical side of it, it was always the urgent that was pulling me away. It was always the one client that was really needed something or really wanted some change to the software that we were jumping to and doing. And usually that was just for them. It wasn't an important feature that like all clients would use, which was always challenging. So I think you're right on that. Absolutely.
I think for what I would, I think it's a pessimist optimist thing.
Yeah.
I think the pessimists focus on the urgency pretty often.
Yeah.
Because if you don't get on top of, like for instance, you're talking almost specifically about customer support. Like I would wager that's why you have a bias to urgency, because if you don't get to the small fire, it becomes a big fire.
Right.
Easy enough.
Right.
But I would suggest that I lean more towards importance.
Yeah.
Because I think it ties a lot to obviously overarching strategy, but usually that ties into growth, because that's the way we structured our company. Again, I don't want to reference the book constantly, but it is kind of our guiding philosophy. Yeah. But like, we were a sales organization, right? That was our priority. So when we consider that, most of the time the things we were focusing on were getting more deals.
Yeah.
And so my important projects usually tied in with getting more deals.
Right.
So I think it depends on your kind of organization, but I think the spirit of this is true, is that where a lot of entrepreneurs get lost is prioritizing the wrong things.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a couple of ways that you can validate this. One is over time, you'll just get better at it as you make mistakes. But I think what we did was a lot of small bets.
Yeah.
Okay. So we would have we have 10 different things we can work on that are all feel equally important or urgent, or depending on what we're doing. So how do you pick? Well, let's dabble a little bit in a couple of these, see what kind of response we get from the market or from our customers, depending on the nature of the issue, and then decide if that's what we want to lean in on.
Yeah.
There were certain things when the things were urgent and important. Google or Apple introduces a new update to the OS on the mobile phones. Well, we're going to be working on that.
So urgent and
important. Oh, great. All the apps are broken. Sweet. Okay, we'll be working on that, right? So, but I think that was something that was interesting for her, and maybe a potential challenge is she has a lot going on.
Yeah.
It will be difficult to prioritize what matters.
Yeah.
Because some of those things will be more personally important for her, like career.
Yep.
And I think other things will be important for her business. And it'll be interesting to see how that overlaps.
Yeah, she's done a really good job of sort of having like things that she was working on that had like finite ends to them and moving on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And I think I'm actually thinking back to our episode with the business transition Sherpa, Lori Barkman, and she busted the myth that, all entrepreneurs are going to exit their business at some point. So it shouldn't just be VC-backed companies that are thinking about their exit. It should also be those bootstrapped companies that are thinking about their exit. So I feel like, and she's probably already done it because she's so on the ball, but I feel like Octavia,
she's probably setting up for it already.
She knows exactly where she wants to get to and how she wants to exit. But that will be something I can see this being a chapter of her career, and then her having a
next book.
Finite, amount of time that she wants to spend on that, and knowing what she wants her exit to look like, and then she's probably cooking up the next thing before she even exits. So very interesting, but she seems just so well put together on. Though I wish I had planned out my career, or I knew where I was going, and I think she maybe doesn't know exactly where she's going, but she knows she has a process to get there.
Well, that's interesting, because she does, but I actually think and this is kind of good because it kind of loops into one of my points here, is what I really got from her was a lot, and I mean a ton of authenticity.
Yeah.
She is herself.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think that she's like we talk a lot about a mission-driven organization. She's a mission-driven person.
Yeah.
Like, you can see the way she's pushing, the direction she wants to go, and she loosely knows how she wants to get there, but at the end of the day, she knows what she's trying to accomplish.
Right.
And that's why you see, I think, such successes in her career so far.
Yeah.
She knew what she wanted to do at every step. Whereas I think we get, even in your own business, you might have times where you're kind of like, I don't really know where I'm going with this right now. Yeah. What's my next target? Is it something arbitrary? Like, I want to bring in another $5 million over the next 2 years or something like. But for her, it's really like impact driven. I am trying to do this. I want with Fire Memos, which we can talk about in a second. But like I want people to be able to report their wins and feel better about their work, and that's what gets her up in the morning. It's the why.
Absolutely.
Think of like Start With Why in some of those books. But that's what I get from her.
Yeah, like impact first.
Yeah.
So
like that's why it's like seems so clear. She's so almost articulate in exactly what she's trying to do.
Yeah.
Because she has a clear vision for what she wants the world to be like. And I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think that is important for you in your own business too, is how are you going to drive, like if you're going in because you're doing it for the money, you're probably losing touch with your impact or at least your authenticity of driving your business.
Yeah.
And that happens. I remember when we joined Raves after we were acquired. I remember talking to our team. I can't believe that. Should I stop doing this? I keep referencing the book, but I remember having a moment where we were like, I had to talk to the team and be like, because we were so in the data.
Yeah.
Rave was way more analytically driven than we were, and I had to be like, guys, just remember that what we're doing here is actually helping save people's lives in some cases.
Yeah.
Right. It's improving people's safety.
Yeah.
And I think that when I did that, everybody kind of recentered.
Yeah.
Even me. Even I was losing sight of it.
Yeah.
I was like, what am I doing? And I think getting back to those, like that authenticity and that impact is really, really important.
Yeah. It's easy to lose touch of that. So I agree. Yeah.
I'm sure you felt that in the coding side of things too.
For sure. We took every opportunity where we could show things that were good from a safety perspective, that outcomes from the code that we were writing to our developers, because that, and part of that too was our approach to how we did customer support. We always had our developers involved in that for escalations, because we wanted our developers to see the problems that our customers were having and how we could improve the product. So absolutely. Yeah.
The last thing I want to talk about here is sort of the spirit of Fire Memos.
Yep.
So I just sort of alluded to it, but this idea of highlighting achievements.
Right.
I thought it was pretty cool, actually. It sounds kind of silly.
Yeah.
On its face. Okay. Well, I'm going to make a platform where you put in the accolades, the good things that you've done.
Yeah.
Not in like a LinkedIn sort of way, but in like an everyday wins kind of, this is what I accomplished. This is why it was meaningful to me. And so that people can feel more confident in themselves and feel more empowered.
Yeah.
I was like, that's a pretty cool idea.
I'm big on this, as you know, because in our business, that we had this like theory. I think I read this somewhere where it's like, something bad happens in your business, it's like -3 points. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
And if something positive happens, it's like you get 1 point for a positive thing.
Yeah.
And
you're a pessimist too. But.
Yeah, I'm a pessimist.
Well, or more of a pessimist than me. You're still pretty optimistic.
But we then tried really hard to find excuses to celebrate all those little wins, to make that like single point that we were getting very obvious that we were getting those, because there were a lot of those wins, and there were a lot fewer of the setbacks, but the setbacks just felt so devastating.
Yeah, you're so in it.
Yeah,
it's your baby.
So
right?
we had to kind of offset that and really focus on the wins and make sure we were celebrating every little win that was happening. So I think Fire Memos is trying to formalize that those little successes. And I think that's really interesting. I think that would have been great for our business.
I think it, for any employee, co-founder or not, whatever, all through your organization, it's going to keep those people more motivated.
Yeah.
Because they're going to have visibility on the little things that nobody really acknowledges or sees. Like you think about performance reviews. Actually, she mentioned this too, where performance reviews, we did them like if you were newer in the company, we actually did them like your first month, the third month, 6th month, 9th month, and year, and then after that every 6 months. Right. But most companies, it's a 1 year like annual thing, and it's like a 1 hour meeting tops with your supervisor or whatever.
Yeah.
And like sometimes they're doing something else on the call, they're answering their emails, and so I think that it's pretty cool to have something that recognizes that everyday work that's really, really important that just kind of goes unnoticed.
Yeah.
And it also makes me think a little bit of our conversation with Rishi Bahari when we were talking about flow. And for people, it helps them identify patterns in their work that they're probably things that they're better at.
Yeah.
And helps them focus on those strengths. I got thinking about downstream effort a lot when she was talking about, okay, well, I recognize where I'm good at something.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty interesting. So there's a lot of benefits of this platform. It's subtle though. It sounds hilarious. I think if you were to talk to like our dad or somebody of another generation, they would go, this is a ridiculous piece of software. You know what I mean? But you talk to people now and it's like, no, this is actually really meaningful. This will have I would bet a profitability impact on a lot of companies.
Yeah.
Like it would drive right to the bottom line.
Absolutely. No doubt.
Man, Octavia, so great. Love that episode. Folks, if you haven't had a chance to watch it, please go back and do it. It was so cool. So many interesting things. She's probably one of the most interesting people that we've had on this show, like no doubt. And I hope she comes back when we invite her again to do this.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd love to see where
she
she's
sells
at.
her company for $200 million or $1 billion or whatever. That'll be pretty cool.
It'd be amazing, to see where she's at a few years from now. I'm sure she's got a whole bunch more things that she's accomplished. So we'll have to have her back.
Thank you, folks, for joining us. That's another episode of Startup Different. We will catch you next week. Hey, you made it all the way to the end of the episode. Nicely done. If you enjoyed this episode, like, comment, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so the almighty algorithm can help others find us. Want more from Startup Different? Check out our book, Startup Different, the myth-busting blueprint for your multi-million-dollar business. Follow us on social. We're big on YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn. You can also check us out at startupdifferent.com. Special thanks for this episode to Graham and our friends at Toronto Podcasts. Visit them at torontopodcast.ca. See you next week.